So maybe you saw the title and thumbnail and thought, wait, is Apple in a fight with automakers? Or maybe you thought, what is CarPlay Ultra? Well, those two questions are related, so let's answer them both. To start, let's look at when Apple announced this new version of CarPlay.
We've been working with automakers to reinvent the in-car experience across all of the driver's screens.
And then they said this.
And automakers from around the world are excited to bring this new vision of CarPlay to customers.
Let's not forget this.
Vehicles will start to be announced late next year, and we can't wait to show you more.
Okay, that's great, but that was 3 years ago. What happened to all those excited automakers? Is there something Apple's not telling us? Let's find out. All right, but first, let me introduce myself. I'm Casual Car Guy, and the purpose of this channel is, well, for you, the everyday driver. I'm a small YouTube channel that has a passion for cars and for teaching people. So if you enjoy this video, please consider supporting the effort by liking it and hitting the subscribe button. All right, now let's dig into what's going on. Let's start by explaining what CarPlay Ultra is, because I think that'll help make sense of what's gone on between Apple and these car companies. As I mentioned earlier, CarPlay Ultra was announced 3 years ago, back in 2022. Back then, it didn't have a name, and so people eventually just started calling it CarPlay 2. Today, however, we now know that it is called CarPlay Ultra, since Apple just released it with the all-new iOS 26 update. We'll talk about the release more in a minute. For now, let's just focus on what CarPlay Ultra is. As you probably know, CarPlay, or standard CarPlay, is really just an extension of your iPhone's apps into your car's infotainment system. It's been around since 2014 and has soared in popularity, allowing you to access most of your iPhone's apps on the go while driving. The most often used for CarPlay is making phone calls, listening to your favorite music or podcast episodes, getting directions, and more. 3 years ago, Apple made the decision they'd offer more than just apps with CarPlay. You see, CarPlay Ultra does more than just offer apps. It takes over your car's operating system, controlling functions on the dashboard to the thermostat, working directly with the car maker to further the Apple ecosystem by controlling your car's settings. It also provides the Apple aesthetics we've come to love on every screen. In its recent release with Aston Martin, we've seen examples of what this looks like, and of course, it looks great. The question is, how does it function? That is really yet to be determined. It's no surprise that Apple continues to grow in the tech space, even with CarPlay, but with this new Ultra version, it seems that Apple may have crossed a line with automakers. Remember earlier in the video when Apple said this?
And automakers from around the world are excited to bring this new vision of CarPlay to customers.
That's not exactly the case anymore. You see, when Apple said this, they promised vehicle announcements by the next year, but after several failed promises, we hadn't seen anything real from Apple or automakers. Not until this year did we find that the next generation of CarPlay was actually going live. The only brand thus far to produce cars with CarPlay Ultra is Aston Martin. That's pretty strange since most of Apple's products are for the masses. Aston Martin, on the other hand, is a brand known for its high price tags and exclusivity. I mean, you don't see James Bond rolling around on a Toyota after all.
And I suppose that's completely inconspicuous.
Get in.
So what happened with all of these excited car makers that Apple was talking about? From some, we haven't heard a thing, and well, from others, they've gone as far as to publicly speak out against CarPlay Ultra. Big brands not in favor of this CarPlay expansion include some of the following. Names such as Mercedes-Benz and BMW, Ford and General Motors. I mean, these are some big names. And since Ford owns the luxury brand Lincoln, I think we can assume they're on the list as well. Other big brands include Tesla and Rivian, which should be obvious considering they don't even offer CarPlay or Android Auto. On the other hand, these brands remain unclear as to whether they will support CarPlay Ultra in the future. Again, some pretty big names here from the likes of Volkswagen and Honda and Toyota. Now, some of these companies have made public comments, which again remain unclear, but a lot of the others have just said nothing. So far, the only brands that we are confident are moving forward with CarPlay Ultra are, of course, Aston Martin, and Apple also says Porsche is gearing up as well. Hyundai is rumored to include CarPlay Ultra on their all-new Ioniq 3, which would lend you to believe that Kia and Genesis will follow suit since Hyundai Motor Group owns both companies. So if we look back to that announcement in 2022, of the 14 companies mentioned, only 7% have plans to move forward. 57% have yet to confirm their support, and 36% have flat out rejected Apple's plans. Why though? Aren't people happy with CarPlay? And don't you think that automakers would want to offer this new software? You see, that's where the battle between Apple and automakers remains. Not with CarPlay, but with CarPlay Ultra. Remember when we talked about the differences between the two? Well, CarPlay Ultra expands Apple's control of the vehicle. And with an increased amount of control comes an increased amount of data collection. And Apple doesn't share data. By allowing CarPlay to expand, some automakers fear losing control of their own products. I mean, seriously, don't take it from me. Let's hear from the CEO of Mercedes-Benz.
There's another view of the world which says just give all of this to Apple. 2022, Apple announced, here's a version of CarPlay that can take over something like the Hyperscreen, can take over the instrument cluster in front of the driver. I asked you then, would you ever do that? You said, I got to talk to them. It's been a couple of years. Have you talked to them? Would you ever let them take over all of the infotainment of the car in that way?
So the short answer is no. But we're not fundamentalists to say, for some reason, we're not going to allow a customer to use Apple CarPlay if that's what they choose to do. So we have Apple CarPlay, we have Android Auto. If for some of the functions you feel more comfortable with that and you will switch back and forth, be my guest. You can get that too. But to give up the whole cockpit, head unit, in our case, a passenger screen and everything to somebody else, the answer is no. You're stepping into your Mercedes cocoon, your Mercedes rolling living room, and the furniture and the digital stuff is from Mercedes.
With data serving as almost a form of currency nowadays, CarPlay Ultra threatens automakers' ability to understand what customers want. This means car makers have less information to understand how their customers engage with their cars, which can hurt their bottom line.
Now the auto industry is learning that data is worth big money.
Other brands worry that Apple's increased presence can isolate their customer experience, forcing a customer's hand towards Apple product. This was made clear by Ford CEO Jim Farley, speaking about this in a recent podcast.
About CarPlay Ultra, are you considering that?
We are. We don't like the execution in round one of Ultra, but we're very committed to Apple. Ford does not have the rights, in our opinion, of disrupting someone's digital life when they get in their car. Whatever phone, whatever digital life you bring in, we want it to make it as easy as possible. We don't think we should restrict that to make money off the customers. We don't want it to be a hassle. We don't think we can design an experience that's going to displace your phone. And yet at the same time, whether it's automated systems or the way a trip gets planned, there are things that Ford is working on to add on top of that digital experience of Google and CarPlay that will make it even better.
While Jim distinguishes that they're not anti-Apple, it's clear that they're not exclusive to Apple. And then there's other concerns that Apple might do such a great job with CarPlay Ultra that drivers can't really distinguish their digital experiences, whether they're in a Mercedes or a Ford. This is, after all, what drove Rivian to avoid CarPlay in the first place.
No, one of the main reasons I got a Mach-E actually had to do with CarPlay. Do you still hate CarPlay?
I love the way, it's a funny way to ask it. No, we definitely don't hate CarPlay. We've taken the decision, which I'm very confident in the fullness of time customers will appreciate, which is we wanted to have a seamless digital experience and not have the need to jump between, let's say, CarPlay, which feels obviously like CarPlay, so it feels the same in every car, that environment, and then what we create as a Rivian environment.
While the news of all this is certainly worth discussing, the question remains, is it concerning for those of us who love Apple CarPlay and want more of it? Is there something that Apple's not telling us? Okay, you may know this, but the original release of CarPlay back in 2014 was almost as, I don't know, obscure as the release of CarPlay Ultra in 2025. I mean, at first it wasn't even called CarPlay. Apple had this goofy name, iOS in the car, before a year later when they eventually changed it to what we all know now. You see, the first ever manufacturer to feature CarPlay was a similarly exclusive and high-priced brand, Ferrari. So while the news of CarPlay Ultra strikes many as Apple being at war with automakers, I think there's something else going on here. I think Apple knows that the popularity of CarPlay will eventually cause manufacturers to cave. Now, will Apple need to change their plans a little bit? Maybe, but Apple said it themselves. 80% of buyers in the United States alone wouldn't even consider buying a car without CarPlay. So time will tell how this all unfolds with CarPlay Ultra. It looks awesome. It looks very Apple. But is it the future, and will we be seeing it in more cars? Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button and hit subscribe for more car content. Oh, and if you want to know more about CarPlay and the latest iOS 26, you can check out this video where I provide an in-depth tutorial of all the new features. Till next time, peace.